We don't have to worry about the Chargers winning in the playoffs or losing in the playoffs because there will be no playoffs for LA's B team. And one question, and Golick and I talked about this a lot yesterday. I've thought about it from the Raiders' perspective because they definitely were landing the plane on a tie. They definitely, the vibe that was emanating from Allegiant Stadium in the final minute of overtime was that both sides were settling in for the fact that they're going to have the tie. And then with 38 seconds on the clock, Brandon Staley calls the timeout. He claims that he wanted to get the right personnel on the field to play run defense. Well, he needs to revisit the quality of his personnel to play run defense. Is he getting unfairly criticized for puncturing that bubble that seemed to be inflating its way toward a tie and both teams in the playoffs, Chris?
Well, I don't agree with everybody criticizing this last decision. It's fair to criticize Brandon Staley. I mean, again, he's a defensive coach. The defense is crappy. There's no toughness to the team. They can't run the ball. It's way too much on the let's just hope Herbert throws lasers everywhere. Too much of that. The fourth down, going for it. You know, again, I know everyone's going to go, well, they were 6 out of 7. They had to go for the last few. They had to. There was no decision. I do look at, stupid decisions like going for it on 4th and 1 when you're down 17-14 on your own 19-yard line. And guess what, Mike? The analytics say it was the right decision because I've never seen the analytics be wrong. Can somebody at one time point to me and say the analytics actually were wrong? It says wrong. I've never seen it wrong. Every time it gets done, whether it was right or wrong, and people come back to me and go, see, well, the analytics actually said to go for it. That's never wrong. Never. I do think he's being unfairly criticized for the last play. I do. Now, like to your point, I don't think the Steelers were going to risk doing anything, aggressive on the offensive side of the ball. I do think they were getting ready to run the ball off the weak side to the left there, and we're going to gauge where they went, as far as how far they got. If they got a 3-yard gain, then I doubt they would have kicked the field goal. They might have just gone, it's a tie, and we're going to the playoffs. They got a 10-yard gain, okay? And then I think they went, all right, now it's the risk of the reward is worth it. Do we really think they're going to block the field goal and return it? That happens very rarely. All right, and the reward is if we win this game, we don't have to go to Kansas City, who we know we match up horribly against in the wild card round. So, therefore, the Raiders kicked it. But I don't think this really changed anything. I think people are unfairly criticizing Staley as it comes to this decision. I think it's fair to criticize a lot of other things he did, but I do think they were going to run the ball off the weak side no matter what and gauge the situation as far as according to how many yards they got on that run right after that. That
right,
makes
but
sense?
it was still kind of all it was. It does, but I feel like it was moving toward both sides accepting that it wasn't going to be close enough when it was all said and done to try a field goal. And I think 50 yards would have been the dividing line for
I think it's about that too, right?
50
right.
or more, he wouldn't have done it. But I got 2 points. As it relates to the Raiders, I'm not so sure that it's a clear distinction to get Cincinnati on Saturday after playing 70 minutes on Sunday night. You get Cincinnati at Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern versus the Chiefs with an extra day to prepare and rest and heal and recover. You know the Chiefs better than anyone. And the Bengals went to Las Vegas and won 32-13. I know it was weeks ago, but they still did. So it's not like they're walking into a cupcake type of a situation in Cincinnati. Either way, they had to go on the road. And I don't know how much of that Rich Bisaccia was even thinking about, because who the hell has ever been in that situation before where you have all these different factors that are playing out in your brain as you're trying to figure out what is the right decision to make. But let me say this, because something occurred to me as you were talking about analytics.
Yeah.
What this ultimately comes down to, the whole analytics debate, it's a question of objectivity versus subjectivity. And Brandon Staley is committed to coaching with objectivity. Now, objectivity is his friend because there's a formula for everything.
Right.
And I'm not denigrating it by saying that. There is.
Yeah.
There's a chart for everything.
Right.
If you are committed to coaching football and approaching football in an objective manner, you don't need years of experience. You don't need the pasta and meatballs that may develop after decades and decades and decades of iterations and games and opportunities like a Bill Belichick has. And I mentioned Belichick for one important reason, because the first thing that I thought of when I considered the whole timeout or no timeout when there were 38 seconds left in overtime was what Bill Belichick did at the end of Super Bowl 49. back when Brandon Staley was on his way from James Madison to John Carroll, I think, which just shows he doesn't have the experience that Bill Belichick has. Yeah. Belichick, in the moment that the clock was ticking on the Seahawks and everyone was thinking, why are you not taking a timeout so you have an opportunity to score when the Seahawks inevitably score here? Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it? There was nothing objective that was driving Bill Belichick's thought process. It was subjective. In the moment, 40-plus years of coaching, he sensed something from the other sideline that told him this vibe that has developed, the tick and the tick and the tick, and they're moving toward doing something that maybe is going to be a mistake, that maybe is going to entail a formation that we're going to spot, that they're going to leave an underbelly exposed here because they're going to lose sight of something as this ticks and ticks and ticks. And it worked. And it was based on his pasta and meatballs, his subjectivity honed by years of experience. That's really the question. It's not analytics, because that triggers the analytics mafia. It's objective versus subjective. Brandon Staley made the objective decision. I got to get my right personnel in here for the situation. 3rd and 4. It's not even a high-level analytics evaluation. It's 3rd and 4.
Yeah.
They're going to run the ball. I see it in the formation. We don't have our best run defense out there. Let's call timeout and get our best run defense out there, even though it's clearly not their best. Versus, boy, you know what? We're getting in. Bisaccia is letting this thing go. Let's just step back. Let's just step back, because our better play here, because we're not going to score. Then we're going to get the ball back and score, for crying out loud.
No, that's not going to happen. No.
They're not going to score. Let's just let this thing play out. They seem to be content with it, and let's do that. That's where the line separates objective and subjective.
I get you. I don't disagree with anything you say there. I think in this situation, again, I do think the Raiders were going to run the ball on the weak side. The formation, the way the running back lined up there, they were going to do it. They just ripped off a run for 7. So,
right.
And I do think, Mike, there was enough incentive again to run it on that weak side and go, if we get a good gain, we're going to kick a field goal. I know you talked about like they lost to the Bengals at home. The game was much closer than the score. It was 16-13 with 5 minutes left in the game. And the Bengals went on a long, tough drive to get in the end zone, and then Carr threw an interception the very next drive, and the game looked a little crazy. They had a 2-play, 27-yard touchdown drive, so then the game went, whoa, they looks like they blew them out, and they didn't. I do think there's enough incentive, though. If you do have that positive run, you kick the field goal, because you don't want – the Chiefs – I mean, they literally knew after the first drive of both Chiefs games, like, whoa, we have no chance. And to me, that's why if you do have that positive game, you kick the field goal. I understand what you're saying with Staley there. I just don't know if it necessarily would have changed a whole lot as far as how the outcome or the way we're evaluating Staley, I guess is what I should say.
Unfortunately, we don't get to see Justin Herbert in the playoffs, and his performance in that game, one of the all-time great regular season performances, and that is not hyperbole, that is not exaggeration. He was spectacular in the fourth quarter. That's all lost in the sauce,
it's amazing,
unfortunately, but hopefully remember what we saw that night. I'll never forget the game that capped the 2021 regular season.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.